Okay, so this is going to be my first read, which in a first read, I'm just trying to grasp the main idea and kind of what's going on. So here I have exam surveillance tools monitor records students during test. Miseducation is a column that chronicles what it's like to be a student in the modern United States by Mary Rada. Okay, and this is recent. Good to know. I'm just going to highlight that for myself. When Ashley, a recent graduate of the University of Delaware, had to take her first remote exam in April after the onset of COVID-19 pandemic, the experience was less than ideal. Her forensic science professor asked students to use a remote proctoring service, ProctorU, to monitor them while they took their test. During the exam, Ashley says her proctor moved her mouse around several times as she was trying to answer the questions, which was scary and distracting while she was taking her test. Ashley didn't do as well as she had hoped, but by the time she'd logged out on some ProctorU, she was in tears. I had so much anxiety taking the exam, Ashley, who preferred not to use her real name, told Teen Vogue. When I finished the exam, I was literally sobbing to my boyfriend. Teen Vogue has reached out to the University of Delaware for comment. Ashley is one of the many students who are now being asked to use remote proctoring services like ProctorU, ExamSoft, or ProctorRio when taking exams online. While these services were around before the pandemic, they have grown in popularity as the number of students taking classes remotely exploded. In theory, they provide a useful service allowing professors or universities to determine whether students are cheating or exams that they are not taking in the classroom. In practice, though, these services have been a huge source of stress for students. Many students who are required per their teacher's instruction to take tests while being recorded told Teen Vogue they felt heavily surveilled while doing so. I think this is an important paragraph. So I just want to highlight a few things. Taking exams online seems like a main idea, right? A useful service, right? It's a huge source of stress for students. And this is the same as the title, that surveillance, and so I'm going to highlight that as well. ProctorU takes privacy very seriously, and I'm skipping this in case you're wondering, because this is just a link that would normally be online, so I'm ignoring it. Different font, different bold, and so I know it's not part of the text here. Okay, ProctorU takes privacy very seriously. Scott McFarland, ProctorU CEO, told Teen Vogue via email. Our technology is able to flag suspicious behaviors during an exam that require follow-up review by a human proctor or instructor. When pressed about the software's ability to manipulate a student's mouse, McFarland added, some test providers do request or require a more secure proctoring service we offer, known as Live Plus service. That does call for a trained and supervised proctor to ask a test taker's permission to remotely access their computer, in much the same way an IT help desk may. This process is explained in advance, requires active permission, is easily observable by the test taker, and the test taker may revoke access at any time. According to ProctorU's privacy policy, the software may disclose information, including video and audio recordings of the student's exam session. That's interesting, so I'm just going to highlight that. Disclose information, video and audio recording, and then I'm going to just go back and talk about this Live Plus service. I might want to read that again. ProctorU may also be required to disclose personal data. Oh, that's interesting. In response to lawful requests by public authorities in certain situations. I'm going to put a question mark there. In July, the sophomore had a data breach that affected more than 400,000 users! Exclamation point. Wow, that's a lot of people. All right. Sorry about that. Next page. B, who has used ProctorIO to take exam for several of her remote classes at Tarrant County College in Texas, tells a similar story. Right, so this is another example. According to B, ProctorIO had access to a video camera microphone per her instructor's settings and recorded students with audio during the remote exam. The software can also monitor movements. Okay, so it can monitor your screen, your movements. I've despised using the sophomore, B, who preferred not to use her real name, told Teen Vogue. On one occasion, I was flagged for movement and obscuring my eyes. I have trichotillomania triggered by my anxiety, which is why my hand was near my face. Explaining this to my professor was nightmarish. Mike Olson, ProctorIO CEO, clarified that ProctorIO flagged students based on settings that an exam administrator chooses for each test session. Teen Vogue reached out to Tarrant Community College for comment. The faculty are in full control of what's being flagged, and they control that after the recording's already done, Olson explained to Teen Vogue. They can say, show me all the students who left the exam, and we'll show them that. I think there's a bit of nervousness from students who are using ProctorIO for the first time and don't understand that we're not going to kick them out of the software for any reason. According to Olson, it's the universities, not Proctorio, who are responsible for what happens to the video or audio recordings. So this idea of responsibility is interesting. Yet Olson himself shared a student's private Proctorio chats with a tech support on Reddit. What? In June, saying that the student had lied about the company not taking a technical issue seriously. As The Guardian reports, Olson later deleted the post and apologized, saying that he and the company take privacy very seriously. Proctorio does not collect any personally identifiable information from test takers to provide support, Olson clarified in a follow-up email with Teen Vogue. This includes chat logs. According to Proctorio's website, the software cannot and does not collect the personally identifying information of any user. Okay, let's just highlight that. However, Olson clarified that based on the instructor setting, the software may take a screenshot of the student's desktop, detect the number of computer monitors connected to a student's computer, or record a student's web traffic. So that seems odd. Students may also be prompted to do a room scan while they turn their computer camera 365 degrees to show that no one else is in the room with them. Interesting. Many students have raised concerns that the remote proctoring services not only feel, I thought that was interesting, I want to highlight, like an invasion of privacy, but also can discriminate against marginalized students. Proctorio's recommendation that students should be alone in a room when taking a test, for example, could be difficult for low-income students who might not have their own bedroom, while being penalized for looking away from the screen too often can disproportionately impact students with learning disabilities such as ADHD. Audrey Yarmowicz, a transgender student at Georgia Institute of Technology, told Teen Vogue they felt discriminated against while using HonorLock, a Google Chrome extension that's often used by universities to monitor exams when taking a test earlier this semester. HonorLock requires students to show a photo ID before taking their exam. For Yarmowicz, that meant providing the sophomore with an ID with their government name rather than the one that they prefer to use at school, which initially caused some complications. Okay, I'm going to highlight that. I had to wait 15 minutes for the professor to be notified about my situation and then respond with allowing me to take the test he assigned, which is both humiliating and none of his business, they said. Teen Vogue reached out to the Georgia Institute of Technology for comment. According to HonorLock's student privacy statement, the sophomore can log the website students' visits, it's like the other one, or attempt visits from Chrome while they are actively on the exam. HonorLock also collects student IP addresses and email addresses and stores student photo and IDs for a limited time period. Many law students are similarly unhappy with the use of remote proctoring software and have united under the Twitter hashtag #BarPocalypse to tell horror stories about taking the remote bar with services including ExamSoft. According to ExamSoft's privacy policy, the software may use or retain biometric identifiers from users, including retina or iris scans, fingerprints, voice prints, or scans of hand or facial geometry. What's more, students have alleged that the sophomore was racist, and some non-white students have even reported had to shine a bright light on their face for the entire 2-day duration of the bar so that ExamSoft would recognize them. For the last 6 months, I and other recent law school graduates have fought hard against the bar examination going remote, in large part because of the reliance on invasive artificial intelligence in order to remotely proctor the exam, says Pilar Margarita Hernandez Escotillas, a recent graduate of UC Irving School of Law. What this experience has solidified for me is what many BIPOC have long known, that lawyers are only comfortable highlighting racism, ableism, sexism, and transphobia when it comes to outside actors, but they refuse to acknowledge that they are perpetrating oppression institutionally. Adequate lighting is required for all exam takers. Nikki Sandberg, ExamSoft's Associate Director for Marketing, Content, and Communications, told Teen Vogue in an email, ExamSoft maintains a non-biased identification and exam delivery process to ensure that our exam does not disproportionately harm any individuals of color. In July, the American Civil Liberties Union wrote the Supreme Court of California opposing the state's use of ExamSoft technology while taking the bar. The Electronic Frontier Foundation, EFF, has also implored the California Supreme Court not to require the use of ExamSoft during the bar exam, arguing that the software forces applicants to surrender their private information in violation of the California Consumer Privacy Act. ExamSoft only retains limited personal data throughout the period of having an ongoing legitimate business need, such as customer, legal, or accounting compliance, said Sandberg. Once this ongoing legitimate business need is addressed, data is either deleted or anonymized and de-identified. We take privacy very seriously. Remote proctoring reinforces systemic injustice, says Lindsay Oliver, an activist of the project manager at Electronic Frontier Foundation and co-author of the EFF letter to the California Supreme Court. We should call remote proctoring technologies what they are: spying. Students and professors who spoke to Teen Vogue agree with Oliver's sentiment that remote proctoring services can seem more effective at surveillance than actually determining whether the students are cheating. Universities often allow professors to decide whether or not they want to use remote proctoring services for their exam, and many have chosen not to. That's interesting. Proctoring software is an expensive way to terrify students into compliance with subpar teaching and learning conditions, Susan Schorn, a senior academic program coordinator of the University of Texas at Austin, told Teen Vogue. It's a sign of a hostile learning environment. In response to the issue these proctoring services have caused, many students are taking action. Students at several schools, including the University of Wisconsin-Madison and the University of Texas at Dallas, have started petitions to convince their respective administrations to stop using certain remote proctoring services due to privacy concerns. Ultimately, many students feel the remote proctoring serves as a distraction rather than an aid to learning. I cannot help but feel that Proctorio does harm and only harm, B, the Tarrant Community College student said. Neurodivergent students such as myself who exhibit behavior related to our condition like high rates of eye movement are consistently punished. This software serves disproportionately penalize those whose behaviors deviate in some that way in any way from what is considered the norm. All right, so this is my first read, and I'm just going to look back through my highlights. And what I'm kind of noticing is obviously kind of the main idea, right? And I'm just going to write some notes to myself up here. So I'm going to write up here, right, main idea, right, so student, anti-cheating maybe, cheating software. I'm going to kind of use that last line that was there that she said, right, that it was really harming students that are outside the considered norm. Harming students outside of norm. And that's really the thesis and what they're arguing. But I am going to write a little note to myself that there's kind of this counter argument, right, from the companies and what they're saying, that it's not surveillance, right? They're not selling data, they're not keeping data. It's really just to keep the, I would call like the integrity of the testing. So that's my first read. My first read is just kind of to get the main idea. What's it about? And then maybe sometimes on the other side here, I think about a little bit like, what do I think? What's my experience with this? And so I'm just going to put me. And I think about my students that I don't use surveillance tools very much, although there's no tests, right, in my class, English Language Arts. But we do have that classroom orchestrator. And what it looks like is I have all my students and I go to a site and I can see all of their screens of what they're looking at. And my daughter's classroom has that too. And I can click on it. I can like turn things off. I guess I could like screenshot it, but I wonder what about the data with that. So that's a little curious for me. So that's my first read. What's it about? How do I connect with it? What do I kind of think? Do I agree? Do I disagree? And then in my subsequent readings, I'll look at it a little bit different way.